Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 23rd of February, year 2025. Today I'm going to speak on the new moon in Pisces that takes place on the 27th of February, Thursday, at 4:44 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you live elsewhere, you will have to do the math. I spoke a little bit about this new moon in the previous podcast that I did on the Pope. I'd like to spend some time now really exploring how you can utilize this saturated water onslaught that's about to come. We could say it's a bit of a tsunami. The moon and the sun co-joined as a unit to introduce a new cycle. They are placed at 9 degrees and 40 minutes arc. I put the new moon chart on a natural wheel, which means that grid follows the order of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, etc., as they are in the natural zodiac order. So the moon, the sun, Saturn, Mercury, North Node, and Neptune will all fall in the 12th house of that chart. And the 12th house indicates the cave, the retreat, the artist studio, hospitals, prisons, places of confinement, places of worship, places where you can have moments of solitude. Now, where it falls in your chart would be the area in which you might wish to truly focus on for the next cycle. And this cycle would complete at the full moon, but it still has a residue that carries over until the next new moon. So the first part of the 2 weeks of that new moon is when you try to launch new projects, but you'll still feel that energy or can call on the promise of that energy for up to a month until the next new moon. And sometimes we actually even see what is promised by a new moon can be triggered later in the year by one of the faster or slower moving planets. That's usually when it's highly configured in your natal chart. For example, if this new moon at 9 degrees, 40 minutes arc, which of course we will round off to just 10 Pisces. Wherever 10 Pisces falls in your chart is the area where you start a new cycle. If you forget what each pie represents, the 12 houses, they are the area in which you would focus. I'll reiterate quickly. First house is the self. It's the lenses you look through. It's your physical body. Second house is what you value. The money that you incur through your income. The money that you spend on things that are important to you. It's a material house, the second house. It's your values. The third house is the house of siblings, short journeys, transportation, the situation with your car, or if you take the bus, it can indicate routes changed, etc., if that's affected. Fourth house is your physical home. It is the seat of the soul. It is also the natural house of endings, and it represents the mother. Fifth house is the house of children, if you have any, or if you have Some astrologers believe that if you have pets and you treat them like children, they come under the 5th house. I actually attribute pets to 6th house. That's the traditional view. Even though I always treated my fur animals like they were my babies. So 5th house is children in general. It is how you have fun, how you have romance, the way in which you explore romance. It represents the type of romantic partner that you can be drawn to. 6th house is pets, everyday work, service to others. It also represents anybody that you employ. The 7th house is, and your health. 6th house is also health, comes under the jurisdiction of your body needs. 7th house is everybody that's not you. Your romantic partners, the public. It can also represent professionals that you hire, such as lawyers. It also represents the type of person you would be drawn to enter into a contract such as marriage with. 8th house is sex, death, and taxes, other people's money, your partner's values, your partner's work. 9th house is higher education, your religious beliefs and tendencies, foreign travel, any foreigners that you have in your life. 10th house is your standing, public standing in the world. If you're a world leader, or if you have a public job, or if you're an influencer and you have an audience, that would be your 10th house, how people view you. 10th house is also the father, and it's the mission in life, what we feel as a calling and are driven to accomplish. 11th house is friends, hopes, wishes. It also represents Congress. It represents networking. 12th house, as I said earlier, is the house of retreat, the cave, the studio where you create art. If you have to go to the hospital, that's represented by the 12th house. Any place where you're taken care of, or you might spend time looking within. Okay, so wherever this new moon falls, it's not just the sun and the moon, which is creating a new cycle in the sign of Pisces, which is a very artistic sign, a very sensitive sign. It's a water sign. It's a psychic sign, meaning that people that have a strong influence of Pisces energy in their chart can tap into that third eye inner knowing. Everybody is psychic, but most people just push it away. It's not any different than having eyesight, but it's the inner eye. So I tell people that I talk to, you would never dream of getting into your car and shutting your eyes and driving away. Why would you shut your third eye? The 12th house is also the house of dreams. During this cycle, it's important to pay attention to your inner intuition, inklings, gut reactions, your dreams, messages that you might receive in symbolic language from those that have already passed on from the other side. Saturn is also in this lineup of Piscean energy, and that's about boundaries. And the Piscean energy represents the ocean. And as we know, the ocean is without boundaries except for the earth. The earth actually creates the boundaries that the ocean has. So when we have a strong energy of water, the thing to remember is water is extremely strong. Have you ever tried to carry a gallon of water up a hill? Have you ever tried to hold water in your hands? It's impossible. You have to have a container. So therefore, you have to have a container during this cycle for your innermost wishes and what you strive for to bring yourself peace. You have to have, in essence, a plan. What is very fascinating to me is how right before a new moon cycle or any astrological event that has a strong signature, we will see or hear events that symbolically are tied to, or even literally, what that new moon or astrological configuration represents. And it's not lost on me, in the last week we've had two incredible stories about whales. The first was in Chile, where a whale swallowed a kayak paddler, a guy in a kayak paddling out there with his dad, who was in a separate kayak, and a whale brushed up against him and swallowed him whole, and he lived to talk about it because that whale then, by some blessing, decided that this was not food he wanted to eat and spit him out. And so the guy later talked about this extraordinary event. You can Google it. It's not a conspiracy theory. It actually happened. I'm fascinated by that. I wish I could get that gentleman's birth data. Another thing that manifested recently is 150 killer whales washed ashore in Australia, in Tasmania, and they don't know why they were breaching on the shore. They were not able to push many of them out, and they were having to be euthanized. And the third big body of water story that's in our headlines right now is the ship in America that's about to be dropped to the bottom of the ocean. And I didn't even know they did this. I mean, I knew the Titanic went down there, but apparently this is how they deal with big ships. I just find that absolutely bizarre. I haven't had time to do further research of why we do this and why it's okay to do this, and isn't there anything else we can do besides put a ship on the bottom of the ocean floor? So those are just 3 examples of pretty prominent stories that are in the news right now, right when we are about to have this new moon in Pisces. Pisces rules the feet. This is a great time to get your feet taken care of, get that pedicure, go and have a foot massage, or have your loved one do this for you. The other planet that is also in this lineup is Mercury. Mercury is about communication. Since Saturn and Mercury are right next to each other, this is a great time to clear up miscommunications. It puts an emphasis on the power of words, but also the unspoken word. Sometimes we can say volumes without saying anything. And with that thought, I will add, going on a meditation retreat right now would be fabulous. The other major event that is happening during this new moon is Maha Kumbla, which is a festival that is acknowledged in India, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, the night of Shiva, in which the moon, right before that new moon happens, is the darkest that it is all year. And in Indian philosophy, the moon represents the mind and the changing mind and the constant chatter of the mind. So since the moon is dark, and at the darkest point throughout the entire year, it is believed that this is when the greatest possible moment of enlightenment can happen. I've been through a lot of Maha Kumbla celebrations. We usually sing all night. I can assure you, I've not come any closer to enlightenment, but I would like to believe that this is in fact possible. So you could spend this new moon on the 27th at some point in meditation and see for yourself, is it easier at this time for you to quiet the mind? Another event that is going on will be the culmination of event which has been going on for a month now, which is the largest gathering of humanity for a spiritual purpose on Earth. And so they will be ending this festival as we honor Shiva, the destroyer of evildoers. Shivaratri is a time in which we can look within and see what it is that we wish to get rid of or end, a habit, a trait we may have that we're not especially proud of. It's an opportunity to look at our shadow and learn from that. Neptune and the North Node are at the last degrees of Pisces. A reminder, the North Node doesn't move forward, it moves backwards. During this new moon, the North Node will be at 27 degrees Pisces, and Neptune is at 28 degrees and 51 minutes arc Pisces. Neptune's about to enter into Aries next month, which is quite a big deal. It will spend a little more time in Pisces later in the year and a few more months before it finally moves into Aries completely. But right now is a fortunate time in which you can renew your faith, deepen that faith, strengthen your psychic energy, develop more compassion for others and yourself, start new creative projects that you've been sitting on the fence with. It's also a time in which you can get in touch with emotions and feelings that have been difficult for you to face. This stellium in Pisces, that's what it's called, is being squared by Jupiter right now. And so therefore, it's going to amplify your sense of feeling and response. It'll be an emotional time for many people. Even for people who are not traditionally emotional, they could find themselves moved by stories they hear, by their own experience in life. It's a great time to contemplate what afterlife means for you, or what it means in your life to be motivated to help others, to do service. It has representation over drugs, booze, faith, dance, art, films, the Pope, which I have talked a great deal about in the previous podcast, the faithful, the con man, fog, rain, fish, music, ocean, dolphins, cosmic consciousness, hallucinations, and imagination. People who are subject to mental disorders will probably go a little bit off the charts. They should definitely not go off their medication at this time. Symbolically, we can think of the lotus, which is born in water, and the beauty of that lotus that is born from mud and water, that we too can baptize ourselves anew in this time of Pisces. You need to be aware of diseases that are easily contagious, because during this period they will be super contagious. In our past, in 1857, when Neptune was in Pisces, it was in Pisces from 1847 to 1862. And that also corresponded to a time in which the spiritual renaissance happened. And I have a note here that in 1857, the Atlantic cable was completed. I want to quote something. On August 16th, 1858, the first message was sent across the Atlantic by telegraph cable, reading, "Glory to God in the highest, on earth, peace and goodwill." I think that that is such a beautiful message, and it's as true today as it was then, that we do wish for peace and goodwill to everyone out there. And divine is the highest glory. That's my word for God, divine. I hope for you, wherever this new moon stellium falls in your chart, you are able to tap in to the inner strength and compassion and love and imagination and goodwill, like a wonderful, warm, secure coat, that you can bestow this upon yourself by your inner meditations and prayers, and that we can help others by wishing them the same. This new moon is supported by Mars, which is now direct and will create a trine with this stellium. And it also has a beautiful quintile relationship with Uranus. That's a creative, magical, maverick, and original aspect. It's an aspect that I would indicate you can tap into your originality, your original voice, your organic, your unique organic voice. So with this, I'm going to leave you with a poem. So this poem I wrote a long time ago, like 15 years ago or so. It's called The Body. The body. Do I cry for humanity and its suffering, or are my tears for my own? Is it one and the same? No separation? Just like the waters that flow around me. What am I without this skin to hold in my bones? I am love. I have forgotten that I am love. So a tear of remembrance softens my face and my heart. Thank you, Divine, for healing waters and goddesses, showering the outer with freedom of concern, as only the inner is what we truly are, love. I'd like to thank you for listening. This is Parker McPhinney. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.